make a start?
Yeah, I think we'll make a start.
Great. Terrific. So lovely to see everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Lisa Sonta. I am president of the Queensland Early Childhood Sustainability Network. And I'm really excited. This is my first learning circle. Last time I was sitting on a plane. So big welcome to everyone. Just a little bit of housekeeping. As I just said, for those who were here earlier, we are going to record tonight. And usually with the video recording, the images are only picked up for the people who are talking. But if you don't want to be captured, then perhaps just turn your camera off, if that's all right. We have had a couple of people who've let us know that they have actually watched the recording from the first one and found it really useful. So it's a great tool. So welcome. We've got representatives across Australia's sustainability networks joining us, and we'll talk a little bit about that alliance as we go. So similar to the last time, we're going to be looking at a little bit of work around the EYLF, and for those who joined before, it's going to be, you'll sort of see it's a bit of a mix between some new information and also bringing others who couldn't join us up to speed. So welcome. So we'd like to start, of course, by acknowledging traditional custodians of the variety of lands across which we're joining here from tonight. I'm sitting in Brisbane on Yagara and Turrbal lands, and acknowledge elders past and present. And we'd really like to pay acknowledge, especially for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who continue to nurture country and children as they have for thousands of years. And of course, any First Nations people who are joining us on this recording or watching this recording as we go through, welcome. And thanks, Steph. Steph's the convener of EEC, the Victorian Environmental Education Early Childhood Network, and Steph's sitting in the background moving slides and letting people in and juggling lots of hats. So thanks, Steph. So we are really excited as an alliance about the new principle in the revised EYLF, and of course that's going to be your governing document in early childhood from next year. So this is a really great opportunity to start thinking about sustainability and what that might look like in preparation for next year. And of course, some of us have been looking at sustainability for a really long time. And so we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. And we're really interested to find out your views on sustainability and perceptions about what that might mean. So interestingly, UNESCO has a definition of sustainability that's quite broad. It talks about environmental aspects, social, economic, political, and cultural. So quite a broad perspective. The revised EYLF features sustainability as a principle, and it talks about environmental, social, and economic dimensions. And so we'll talk a little bit about what might be missing a bit later on. Thanks, Steph. So yeah, so the revised EYLF talks about these three dimensions: environmental, social, and economic. And certainly for Australian early childhood educators, you know, we've been embedding really strong environmental practices for a very long time in our spaces. And certainly when the EYLF and the National Quality Framework came to the fore all those years ago, there was a huge uptake in natural environments, in bringing the outside in, that really did cause a lot of change and movement. And so there's probably not such an unfamiliar area, and we'll talk about that soon, but certainly social and economic for some educators. This might be new for you as in terms of thinking about these as, oh, I didn't realise that that was part of sustainability. So we'll have a look at that. And I know last time Fran was doing the moderating. Thanks, Fran. So, and Fran was gave some really interesting prompts around some of these questions. So Fran and I'll have a little chat between ourselves and maybe sort of see what people have been thinking about since last time, for those of you who've joined before. So if we're thinking about environmental sustainability, we're thinking about caring for the natural world, talking about protecting, preserving and improving. So maybe we'll open it up. What do you think? What's happening in your space around this? What sort of practices do you see every day, or what might you like to see?
I wonder, Lisa, if there's anyone who could tell a story
that'd be
about their practices in their service.
Yeah.
Anyone like to volunteer around that? I know a couple of people have said they would.
Yeah.
Fran, I'm happy to tell a story.
Lovely. Thanks, Robert.
It's a bit of an ongoing story. So I'm an early childhood teacher. I work at West Pymble Preschool in the northern suburbs of Sydney. And each week we take the children out into the local bushland that surrounds our preschool. And in our acknowledgement of country, we talk about a commitment that we have to, caring for the land and the bush and the waterways, etc. And every week when we go out for our walks out into the bushland, the children are absolutely ruthless about picking up rubbish. There's a designated person that has the tongs, there's a designated person that has the rubbish bag, and everybody else is keeping an eye out for any rubbish that they see. And the walk would probably take an hour if we didn't collect rubbish, and it takes about an hour and a half with rubbish collection. And it's a really, really important thing, because the children tell me we have to look after this land, we have to collect the rubbish as we go along. So as we were walking about probably about 6 weeks ago, we came to our favourite waterhole in the creek, and we saw that there was an office chair that had been dumped in the creek, and the children were obviously quite upset and surprised that somebody would do this. And so there was lots of theories about how it got there, what we should do about it, how we should get it out. And cutting a long story short, one of the children, there were lots of discussion about getting helicopters in to take it out and knocking trees down so that we could climb down. And I did say to them, look, because it's in the water, it's not safe for us to go in there. It's not safe for you to go in there. It's not safe for me. I don't feel safe going in there. And so one of the children came up with, and must have been a child who had experience with council before. They came up with, we should get in contact with the council so that they know about it, so that they can get it out. So when we got back, I said we might need to do some more talking and writing about how this is affecting us, how this is affecting our local environment. So they did some amazing drawings and told me some wonderful stories, so I was able to compile those. So I got in contact with council, and I'm a big believer in, so if you don't get the answer you want, you should keep trying and try different avenues. Okay, so we didn't have a great response. It was we'll send somebody down there to clean it out. And I said, well, look, it's really important that the children are involved in this. And so I think that went into the too hard basket for them at the time. But then I was approached by the local environmental education officer for the council, and she got in contact with me saying that she had been in contact with the public cleansing team, and they were going to get in contact with the children and I. And she said she'd explained to the people who were going to do the cleanup that the children themselves had been the catalyst for the removal of the chairs, and it's part of their learning. She's also explained the importance of this experience in building understandings of community and consolidating the children's learning about the importance of clean, pollution-free waterways in the council area. So I start back at work after holidays on Wednesday, and I'm looking forward to the public cleansing team getting in contact with me so that the children can be involved in the removal of, actually it's turned into 2 chairs have been dumped into the creek. So, you know, they've listened to the children's voices, and we've had a positive result about that. So I'm really looking forward to continuing to tell that story as it evolves. Thank you.
That's great, Robert. What a powerful example of, you know, really engaging children as part of this as a solution, because, you know, sometimes it's very easy for us as adults or as educators to see a problem and think, oh yes, well, the children can help pick up rubbish, but, you know, like taking it that step further about council, that doesn't really belong with children. So it's just fantastic to be able to see, you know, that you're really leading children as advocates and as solution makers here. That's wonderful.
Activists.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely activists. Yeah. And, you know, that you're not going to just step back and accept the first answer that you might get from council. We often used to call that, we prefer to ask for forgiveness, not permission. So it's sort of a similar line, isn't it? We have to be able to keep generating those voices. Lovely. And probably it'll be interesting, Robert, to hear the trickle effect with families with that, what stories those children might take home to their families about, oh, you know, the chairs there, or how we're helping there.
Well, we actually welcome the families to come on our walks with us. Some of the families have been part of that discussion. Yeah. And I've said to them, please do not go down to the creek and pull those chairs out. Okay, this is far too important for it to have an easy answer. It needs to be something much more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah.
Yeah. Great. That's a really powerful message there, isn't it? Around what can we fix? You know, how often do we step in as educators about fixing something for children? Interesting. Anybody else with a story or something in the chat? And I guess environmental sustainability, as I said, this seems to be an area that we're finding, certainly in research around, you know, this is where Australian educators are doing really well. You know, this is a very familiar path for sustainability to tread. Absolutely. Melanie's just commented that Robert's story could also be considered through social sustainability. Absolutely. And interesting, you know, we're looking at this, you know, the EYLF talks about these 3 pillars, but I think you'll find the more you explore, and you'll certainly see tonight how much overlap there is between the dimensions. And Sue Elliott sitting in the background, Sue's sitting in Adele saying, yes, they're all applicable. Absolutely. Shame political's not there, Sue, isn't it? That's a really political action that Robert's doing there. All right, so maybe we'll move on to the next, because I think the next one is social. Thanks, Steph. So social sustainability, inclusion and peace, you know, fair and respect, equity, resilient local and global communities. And again, certainly in early childhood, for such a long time, we've been doing so much work around inclusion and diversity, around peace, around resilience. But perhaps as an early childhood educator or as an ed leader leading teams, perhaps you may not have connected the dots between inclusion and sustainability before. Interested to find out, what are the thoughts there?
Someone got something that you'd like to share around social sustainability? Perhaps another little story would, because examples of practice, I think, are really, they really sort of hit the mark in a way, because it's practical, and you can get ideas of what you might like to do, to copy.
Absolutely.
Or emulate, whatever. Yeah. Anyone have a comment around social sustainability? If you don't understand what it might be, or would you like to ask a question about social sustainability? You're not sure about what it actually means? Everyone a little bit quiet. It's no question. No question is a silly question. It's all.
No,
all
absolutely.
questions are good.
Absolutely. It's the whole idea of this. And I keep thinking back, Fran, to
I can say something.
oh, sorry, yes, Melanie. Go for it.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Mel from Explore and Develop Annandale. Social sustainability is interesting. We've been unpacking the sustainability principle quite slowly. And when we were so we've been unpacking it as a team in thinking pairs, and some of the different things that the thinking of the educators that has come out is really interesting. But they've been aligning it to things like the anti-bias approach, and well-being, and the way that well-being is talked about in the EYLF, and they're wondering where the idea of looking after each other and considering each other in the space, and checking in on people, and making sure that all humans are being treated fairly, kind of fits in with the social sustainability principle, which is interesting, I think.
Lovely.
So, yeah, I'm not sure where we're exactly going with this yet, but I'm really interested in how it's unfolding and how people are thinking about it. I think it's a little bit deeper than just inclusion.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's got that kind of deeper child or human as citizen element to it. And what does it mean to be a good citizen in your local community, but also in that global community? And if you're even considering, what's it like to be a good citizen in your classroom context, and unpacking that with very young children is interesting.
So Mel, thank you, Mel. Would you think about, because often we find, I guess, in our sector that birth to 2-year-olds are often not included into a lot of things. So just wondering how you might think about including really young children.
Well, I mean, we take our really young children out on walking excursions in the community, as well as with our nature play program. So I think just the act in itself of having very young children visible and engaging in civic life is super important. And I think as we move more and more to more and more working families and children coming to us, children are actually less and less visible in those public spaces, in the Monday to Friday. And I think it's really super important that we make them visible and we make them seen and we make them heard, and it starts right at the beginning. I think that's how we engage very young children in social sustainability, just as a starting point anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mel.
Absolutely. And Melanie, I really love the way that you said, you're starting slowly to unpack, and you're going from your team's thinking, sort of trying to find out what does your team think, and then building up some shared perspectives. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think getting the children involved in those conversations is interesting as well. Their perspectives, and the way they see these big concepts, they can often break it down just to quite a simple way of understanding, that is often helpful for some of the adults in our world, right?
Yeah, lovely. Louise has got a hand up. Hi, Louise. Do you want to unmute if you've got a...
Hello, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Fabulous. Okay, so from a social sustainability point of view for that Mitchelton Preschool and Centre, has been heavily involved in last year and this year are some of the grocery drives, the dignity packages. The children have been involved in, creating the boxes, collecting all of the things, sorting them all out with the staff member that's organising that, organising the Christmas drives for food banks for families that are in need. Also, we're about to undertake a clothes swap for children from 0 to 8 sizes. So we've really been putting that push in there that what we have and others may not, and how can we provide for them. And also then looking at our community around us, but also looking further afield. We're just about to make a donation through our all of our recycling that we do, and the money that comes back from that, we're just about to make a donation to an orphanage over in Africa to help provide them for meals. So the $100 that we send them will be many, many thousands of dollars in their currency. And so the children are then going to be part of this reciprocal communication with the orphanage and the children, and understanding what they have and how incredibly fortunate we are to be living where we are and have access to all of the wonderful things that we do. So we've really had a bit of a push on that this year and last year, and we will continue to be a part of that.
Yeah, fabulous. Thanks, Louise. And interesting, I keep reflecting back to the work that services did during COVID, when you were not so connected to your communities. And so throughout Australia, we saw early childhood services start food banks, start toy libraries, start dropping off resources and have resource collections. There was so much social connection that happened as a result of that. So, really urge services to reflect on that and continue to think around those practices that you were already doing that you just may not have realised were social sustainability.
Absolutely, Lisa. And I just note in the chat that Jennifer's put forward a question for us to have a think about, to ponder upon. Is social sustainability the interconnected, intergenerational learning and support of each other? So that's perhaps another avenue, another way of thinking around intergenerational connectedness as well.
Yeah, lovely. Lovely. Shall we, Fran, did you want to talk about post-humanism at all here? Or I wonder if people are aware of post-humanism. Is that a term that people are familiar with?
Yeah, somewhat.
Bronze raised her hand.
Okay.
Yeah, Bronze raised her hand. Yep, sure.
Hi, everyone. So mine is just a little story from this past week. So I'm an early childhood teacher of a group of 3 to 6 year olds, and we were just doing our what we consider very important but quite admin heavy bushfire drill. So when we went through and we talked about, and the children had seen the bushfires throughout the world. So we live in a bushfire area. It is something that affects our community. But at the end, when we asked if there was any questions and if there was any concerns, we had 2 little people chatting, and then one little person said, I have a concern. I have a concern because I was just wondering what we would do if we had a bushfire how would we get the chickens inside and the nesting bird that is nesting outside that we can't reach, and the babies that can't fly yet. So that is like just a small example of children thinking outside of humans and thinking about, I guess, humans and animals as existing in the one space, in the one environment. It was very important to them. And then we had another lengthy discussion about perhaps what we could do. And the teachers did not have the answers. It was certainly something that was put back to children for some solutions.
Yeah, lovely.
Mel, were you going to say something about posthumanism? You had a look on your face there, I thought.
I just started frantically tapping. I was just saying, yeah, I would definitely consider the post-human thinking. Common worlding is, I think, really beginning to penetrate the way that we're thinking about our relationships with each other, with the non-human. And I think again, you know, what Bron was just saying, the way that children grasp it so quickly is quite profound, where, you know, as adults we're struggling you know, to remove our human centricness, or to, you know, reconsider it. Children haven't developed that yet. Does anyone else feel that when they're playing with post-human ideas with children? That was my thinking.
Thanks, Mel. And somebody's just put in the chat here. Sorry. That's going back to
the intergenerational practice. Yes,
talking about intergenerational practice. So yeah, so have a look at that.
Absolutely,
that as well. Yeah.
And if you've got a team, or if you're an educator who's not so familiar with post-human, certainly worth a Google. But even a simple start of looking at that, the diagram, you'll be able to find it very easily on Google around ego and eco, where you'll see often just a black and white image of a human that's like a triangular picture of human at the top, with variety of natural elements sort of coming down from the human. And the eco, of course, is a circular image where humans are no more important than anything else in nature. So, you know, that could be a really interesting conversation or something to think about, critical reflection. Lots of different ways to start. All right, shall we move? Steph, do you think, or is there anything else from social sustainability that people want to talk about? Can always come back. So the other dimension that is recognised under the new sustainability principle is economic sustainability. And every time I see economic sustainability in early childhood, I just immediately go to workforce crisis, but that's probably just my space I'm in at the moment. But, you know, we're thinking around practices that support economic development that don't impact the other dimensions, and wow, that's fraught. And so that's thinking around fair and equitable access to resources, conserving resources, and reducing consumption and waste. So again, we'd love to hear some stories or some dilemmas. I know a big dilemma that we had years ago when I was teaching in a service was we did a lot of thinking around resources, especially when the new EYLF and the National Quality Framework came in, and there was such a push that you bring your outside natural materials inside. And so everybody was buying all of these natural resources. And of course, a lot of the natural resources were not fair trade, were not coming in from places that had ethical, you know, procurement. And so, you know, it's a huge dilemma. So, you know, if you're thinking around ethics, often this is a really good question to start with about, you know, what do we need? Where do we get our resources from? And how might children and families be involved in this? So I'm not too sure if anybody has any thoughts about that or what they might be doing in their services. The other thing that we saw certainly is consulting, going out to various centres, was because there was such a push on natural resources, then a lot of services then tipped their plastic away. So they just dumped their plastic, and so nothing to see here anymore. But of course, where does plastic go? So it is really fraught.
Lisa, with resource acquisition, we were also talking about and natural materials, and had the same kind of conversations about where do they come from, and if people are buying natural materials through catalogues, where do they come from? But then also thinking about sort of observing things in place and leaving things in place, and what resources are okay. I think families that we work with, maybe when they were children, they may have taken shells from the beach, or they may have taken, things that are being used as creatures' homes, and so they don't really always understand. But having conversations with the children about, and we had lots of conversations at our nature play program earlier in the year, because children were putting everything in their pockets. They were putting creatures in their pockets. They were putting sticks and bark and everything that they effectively wanted. And so we were having conversations about that as well, and that also comes into that post-humanism lens as well, like what whose home is this, and who does this belong to, and as human, and who has the rights here as the human? Do we have the right to take this, that is actually an animal's home? And fascinating thoughts and theories from children, but giving them the opportunity to actually think about those things and consider those things as we go together has been really powerful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Steph. And interesting that, this is falling under resources and consumption. And often we're thinking, that might be environmental sustainability. When we talk about leave no footprints, that's environmental sustainability. So again, you can see how those dimensions overlap. Tracy, I can see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the economic side. We've got a nearly 60-year-old kindy in Brisbane, and some of our chairs have been fixed, re-screwed, redone, revamped, and they're just falling apart. So we started by looking at the catalogs, and then just thought, no, there must be a better way to get these. I mean, we need chairs. We all need little children's chairs. And so we linked up with the local men's shed. And we went to our local Greens candidate, who has had a grant on offer for community, any community things that people needed in the community. So we got a grant, and we worked with the men's shed, and they're building us all our new chairs that we needed. And it's just a much nicer way than going to a catalog and ordering it from a faceless sort of big conglomerate. And the men's shed have just been lovely, and they made us some nesting boxes, which children painted and we put up, and we just have this great sort of lovely relationship now from starting that. That's been it's really a lovely way to get new items that you need, but also working with your community.
Wonderful. Thanks, Tracy. Yep. And again, Tracy, you can see how those dimensions intertwine, can't you?
Yes.
So that connections, and that's beautiful intergenerational connections there between the men's shed and an early childhood service.
Yeah, because they've been over and seen the chairs that we used to have, seen where we've put the nesting boxes, and they're just, the children have talked to them, and it is that lovely intergenerational, like you're saying.
Yeah, wonderful. Monica's made a comment in the chat about they're currently looking at the resources and they're wanting more natural items, and they don't want to waste the plastic resources they have. It is a dilemma, and certainly there are so many services that are gifted items from families, old puzzles, old plastic toys, all sorts of things. And again, that's a dilemma, isn't it, when you need to be able to negotiate that space with families about appreciating what that they can give, and they're hoping to, to contribute to the community. But on the other hand, what are the resources that are going to be appropriate or, ethical to use? It's a tough space.
It is, and also in terms of economic sustainability and around waste, there are lots of different websites that you can visit to have a look around that economic waste type. There's the EPA website in New South Wales. There's all sorts of other ones that perhaps we can put together a list of websites that people could visit. That might be part of something that we could do. Everybody might be able to share some website, and that would be useful across Australia, I think. And also, I did notice that there's somebody here from New Zealand, so we've welcomed everyone from Australia, but it'd be lovely to welcome whoever it is from New Zealand. Would you like, whoever it is, would you like to introduce yourself, please? No? I'm sure I saw someone from New Zealand.
Excuse me, I don't know if it's me, but I do have a company in New Zealand. My name is Rita, and it's called Conscious Kids. We do nature programs in our local parks and junk play programs as well, that we have a connection with recycling centers. So we have big loose parts play of junk, and it's really nice. But I live in Gold Coast, and I work with I was working with Nature Play Queensland, and now working with Cottonwood Learning, doing bushkin sessions. So that's me.
Yeah, lovely. Well, great that we've got that New Zealand reach.
Yes. Thank you.
Fabulous. Some comments in the chat around minimisation, about only bringing in what's really necessary, about children taking older items needing from repair from other services and fixing them and then giving them back. So lots of, networking around services, around swapping. And certainly, social media has certainly helped, like Facebook Marketplace and those types of avenues. A lot of services are using those to be able to share resources or try and find something that's suitable as opposed to buying something new. Yeah. One of the alliance actions at the moment, as an alliance, we are putting together a series of webinars. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but I know waste is one of the hot topics on the webinar list. So that will be something that we'll be able to put together and hopefully support you with too. So as Fran said, any links that people might have, if you want to contact us or pop them in the chat, that would be really useful. Yeah, and paying it forward groups is another. That's another economic sustainability. Lovely. All right, shall we pop over to Sue and just see? Sue, do you want to come in here? I've got Sue Elliott sitting in the background.
Yes, I'm happy to come in.
Thanks, Sue.
I think you've covered all those dimensions of sustainability really well. So thank you, Lisa and Fran and Stephanie. And hi, everybody. My role tonight is to try and give you a little bit of an international perspective on what's happening in early childhood education for sustainability. So there's a few things that I want to highlight and a couple of new resources that might help people with unpacking the new sustainability principle. And I guess before I mention particular examples, I just want people to be aware that the work that we've been doing in Australia is part of world leading practice in early childhood education for sustainability. The research that's been going on, the publications that have happened that have come out of Australia. And we have a lot of connections with people around the world, and our work is well recognised from those various connections. I think also you need to understand that the sorts of networks that we have around Australia and the alliance, particularly of all the 6 state-based networks, is quite unique in Australia. I haven't seen it anywhere else in the world, and this is the grassroots practice and the connections that keep us all up to date. And with the new sustainability principle, there's a significant opportunity here for all the state-based networks to come together in the Alliance to really support practitioners in moving forward. There's all of the state-based networks. Stephanie's just flicked the slides there to put onto that. So whatever state you're in Australia, you can connect with your local network. So we might go back, Stephanie, and have a look at some of the things that are happening internationally. So firstly, on the left there, you can see the OMEP professional learning app. So OMEP, if you haven't heard of it before, is the World Organization for Early Childhood. They do have regular conferences, and they've very much been at the forefront internationally of promoting education for sustainability in early childhood. And most recently, just in September this year, they launched an online learning app. So it's professional learning called Sustainability from the Start, and it's available free of charge, and it's also available in multiple languages, being a European-based online learning. So you can access that through EdChild. So have a look at that, and you might be able to participate in some of those free online modules that they have. There's 8 modules on different aspects of sustainability. The other thing that's happened internationally, the ESERA, which is the European Early Childhood Education Research Association, they have a sustainability SIG, which I established with some colleagues in 2019. And that sustainability SIG has just met recently at the conference in Portugal. And at that conference, the image you can see there is what we're actually doing is launching the sustainability position statement for that special interest group within ESERA. So that was quite a significant milestone for that particular group. And we seem to be gathering more and more people through that SIG group. And it's actually having an impact on the whole organisation, because ESERA has now recommended to other special interest groups that they actually take sustainability on board. Doesn't matter whether you're an interest group focused on birth to 3 or focused on digital technologies, it's important that you engage with sustainability. And I think that's a very important message, that we're just not an isolated sustainability group, that we have impact across the whole organisation. And it's been interesting that the ESERA Board of Trustees have now decided that sustainability will be a focus for their next conference in 2024, and that will be held in Brighton in the UK. Melanie's just asked about that sustainability position statement. I have shared that with all the state-based networks, and so your state-based network would be able to provide that for you, or you can actually go to the Sustainability SIG Facebook site with ESERA. You don't have to be a member of ESERA to access it that way, and it is available on their website as well as the Facebook. So lots of possibilities for that. I think it provides a benchmark statement that all early childhood organisations should have some sort of statement or policy or mission statement about sustainability to inform their management of their organisation, and then to filter down to all the early childhood services that they might be connecting with. So one other thing that I'll mention internationally before we leave that slide is the transnational dialogues in early childhood education for sustainability research. And a number of about 5 Australians, including Lisa and Fran that are here, were at the Transnational Dialogues meeting that we held in Sweden at Mälardalen University in August this year. And that's a group of people that have been gathering since about 2010. So we've had 8 transnational dialogues so far. That's a group of people that are really very much committed to research and building the research profile of early childhood education for sustainability. Research that is potentially is linked to practice and can inform practice, and also the development of policy around sustainability in early childhood education for sustainable development. So that group is the sorts of areas that group is interested in with research at the moment, and maybe these align with some of the gaps that you can see in your practice and where you need support in your practice. Things around the policy practice gap between, how do we move from having a sustainability principle in our curriculum policy to actually embedding that in practice. And sometimes there's a gap there that needs to be bridged. So that's something, these learning circles are very much about bridging that gap, but perhaps we need some research in that area. We certainly need some research around pre-service training and what's happening in that area, because our courses don't have sustainability units in them. Research around children's voices leading sustainability, and there's some people that have started work in that area. How do children understand what sustainability means? Ideas of research with practitioners, research about birth to 3 and sustainability, because often we tend to focus on the older children, and leadership for sustainability. What is sustainable leadership in an early childhood service? So there's all sorts of possibilities there. There's about 150 people internationally on the Transnational Dialogues mailing list at the moment. But when we actually get together, there's usually only a fairly small group because of the issues of trying to travel, but we do have online meetings as well. So I think that covers the international ones. There are a couple of other things on the next slide I was going to mention, Stephanie. The couple of new texts that are available shortly. I'd like to strongly acknowledge Julie Davis, who's very much been working with me and I with her over many, many years. And these 2 publications are coming out in the next few months. The one on the left there, the green one, is a new version of a very old publication. If any of you have been around long enough in this sector, you might remember there was a little book called Making It Mainstream that was published in 2003. That's 20 years ago. And ECA approached us to do a new version of that booklet. Well, it's turned into something bigger than a booklet, and it's now part of a new ECA series on various curriculum topics. So that will be out in the next few months, we hope. We've already looked at proofs on that. And that will do some of that bridging, I hope, between the sustainability principle and the sorts of pedagogical ideas and practices that we need to put in place in early childhood. The other publication to mention is Young Children and the Environment, and some of you may be familiar with this. This is a 3rd edition of this particular publication, and the publishers approached us wanting to have a publication that had a broader international reach. The publication had already been translated into Korean and into Chinese, and it was selling very well in parts of South Africa. And this is an Australian text. So what we did was to bring more international authors on board. So it's been a collaboration across research, policy and practice by over 40 international chapter authors from both academic and practice roles. And you'll find in there lots of case studies and lots of examples of things that we can be doing in sustainability as we move forward. So I hope you find those two publications useful, and I might leave it there at the moment. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Sue. Exciting times. So good to see that ECA document coming out. Finally, Sue. It's very exciting. Yeah, so thanks, Steph. Can we move across to the next slide? So as we said, we've gone, and Sue mentioned, this is really unique to Australia that we have our not-for-profit state-based sustainability organisations. And we are really cognizant that this new sustainability principle has come out and been released, and we are really wanting to support educators. So part of that alliance work are these online circles. So this is our second one. We will have some more of these next year, and we'd love feedback about how we can make these accessible. We were thinking that, you know, today's and last time's was a bit of an introduction, but if we have probably more focused topics and we can do some breakout groups and do some bit of in-depth diving would be really useful. So there's all sorts of things we can do with that. And the other thing that we've done is we've developed or are developing a series of webinars. So the first webinar is available on the EEEC site. And if you scan the QR code, and we'll have this available, you'll be able to find the first webinar in the series. And that's been presented by the fabulous Sue Elliott around the climate crisis and children. So that's a free access. Then we've got a bank of webinars in development at the moment, and they're going to be available. If you are a member of a state-based organisation, you'll be able to access those free as a member. Otherwise, you'll be able to purchase those through the EEEC, to the Victorian EEEC site. So that's why that link is there to help you familiarise with that. So there'll be more information about that. So I think, yeah, thanks, Stefan. And of course, here are these organisations. And as Sue said, you know, some of these are 30. I think Victoria's celebrating their 30th year. Crexham, we're in our 25th year. You know, these organisations have been going for a very long time. So it's great that we are seeing some impetus around more engagement with this. Sue's popped in the links into the chat there. And again, you know, if there's more information that you're wanting, then please just reach out to the organisation in your state and then, you know, help us support you in this work going forward. Any other comments before we close off?
For those in New South Wales, our Early Years Nature Connections website, we're working to put all the Alliance information onto that website at the moment. It's just taking us a little while to get our heads around how to do it, but it will be there very soon.
Great. And we have a new Sustainability Alliance page on the Crexham website that it's there. And again, we're updating that as we go.
So maybe before we go, is there anything that anybody would like to propose that we talk about when we have our next learning circle? Because as Lisa said, this is what we need. We need some feedback so that we can help you engage more with all the dimensions of sustainability within that new principle on the EYLF. So is there anything that anybody would like to know more about? What sort of style you'd like these learning circles to be in? Would you like more stories, more case studies? What would you like?
I would like help sharing some of the pedagogies that inform these practices, like the theories behind them and stuff. Being able to go deeper into things like you're, you know, talking a little bit about post-human stuff, you know, new materialism and common worlding and all of these kind of new ideas in early childhood pedagogies. It would be good to have a bit of a, you know, a introduction for dummies kind of session, you know, to kind of break it down to support us to be able to share that with our teams further. That's my thinking.
Okay, good.
Fabulous.
We can do that. And Monica's put in some case studies. So they're yep, we'll do more of those. Anything else? Would you like to go into breakout rooms? Would you like to be able to discuss in more? Tracy's just said breaking into small groups. Yeah,
Yes, that'd be great. Be able to facilitate some conversation.
Yep.
Breakouts would be fabulous. Great.
Yep. And how often would you like these? How often would you think you'd like to attend learning circles? What would be the time frame? Like once a month, once every 2 months, once every
term,
week? Haha. Just an indication, just so that we can, bi-monthly,
Bi-monthly, about every 8 weeks, sure.
every 6 to 8 weeks. Yep.
Yeah, Nadia. Do you want to unmute? Can you find the microphone button on along the bottom?
Yeah, I think, once every 6 weeks.
It's every 2 to 3 months, so it's every 6 weeks. So somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. Good. Well, that just gives us an idea of, how we can plan for more sessions. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it might be that we can feed off the webinars too. The webinars that we're developing will give some juicy meat to some conversations and be able to pull those apart in a learning circle and think about, okay, well, what other practices can we think about here? How does it link to theory? I think that's great, Melanie, that you're thinking about theories. So, especially some of these theories are familiar to some of us, but for others, these are very new terms when we're used to such traditional theories in early childhood. So it's a great chance to be able to explore them in a little safe space. Lovely. Well, as I said, reach out to your state-based organisation and let us know your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, Sue, for your fabulous insights, as always.
Okay. Thanks, no problem.
Lovely. And thanks, Steph, behind the scenes. Steph has been doing all of this tonight and organising the access for this. So thanks, Steph, and thanks, Fran. Great to see you all. I think Steph will probably